Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the July 28th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Matter of fact, let's get this out the way, because you know I was struggling with it yesterday. If you tuned in, I gotta put up the Umar
donations,
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 gifts,
gifts, gifts,
gifts,
gifts.
More gifts.
More gifts.
So, and just for that, since we waiting for people to come on in, I'm gonna play the other Umar I got because I think this is a theme.
Let me see. I'm giving y'all all my wisdom.
People who aren't trusted.
Last donation to the school was Richard Harris.
And so feel free to drop off some coins at the Cash App, hashtag Quantify LLC.
I'm about to hang up.
So we're going to get into this conversation about, well, I did my shout outs already, right? So shout outs to those watching on Facebook Live. Shout out to those of you who are watching on YouTube Live. And props to the people, the stragglers who are tuned in on IG. I see y'all. I just got asked a question on IG about how do you teach passion? And I'm a firm believer that you cannot teach passion. Passion is something that comes when you become good at something. I don't think anybody starts off with whatever their particular endeavor is by being good at it, right? I think it comes from a lot of trial and error. It comes from the 10,000 hours that Malcolm Gladwell talked about in his book Outliers. So with that being said, I think that we have to be good at it. We have to be good at it. I'm trying to think of somebody who wasn't good at something and was passionate about it. I don't know. Maybe you guys can let me know, right? But anybody that I've ever seen being passionate about anything has come from this idea of, I'm good at it. I can achieve it. I can excel at it. Whether you're a secretary, you're good at your job, there's a possibility you can become passionate about your job because you know everything, right? You know what it takes to be successful at this job. People say Michael Jordan was passionate about basketball at the age of 14 when he got cut from his was it high school basketball team. And I will push back and say Michael Jordan wasn't necessarily passionate about basketball. Michael Jordan was passionate about the idea of nobody outworking him and nobody being better than him, right? And he saw that, and so he had to put into the work. He put in the work necessary to be really good at basketball, to be great at basketball. Where again, it was his passion once he became great at it, and it continued to drive him. But that wasn't necessarily the force that drove him, right? This passion. You're not just born with passion. I'm a firm believer that that's not the case. So when we get into this conversation, and if you haven't noticed, I got a little haircut. My hairline is going a little further back than I initially thought. I had locks at the beginning of this coronavirus pandemic. About a month or two in, I decided to cut it off and to get a baldy. Unbeknownst to me, my hairline took a major hit, and so I'm grieving that loss as I continue to go forward in my life. I'm contemplating going back to the baldy, right? Because I'm just not liking how all this is sitting. But it comes with age. It comes with wisdom. For those of you who are just tuning in, but the topic of the day is a lack of trust in our professionals. One professional that we have a lack of trust in is this good brother right here.
Donations.
I appreciate donations. I appreciate gifts. Hashtag Quantify LLC.
Donations.
I'm going to get started.
Donations. Gifts. 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 More gifts. More gifts.
So within the last 24 hours, a black woman has been trending. a black woman medical doctor. I was initially I was reporting her as being Nigerian born. I was corrected by somebody who is indeed Nigerian. She's Cameroonian. I hope I got that right. She's Cameroonian, and she moved to Nigeria. She went to medical school in Nigeria, and now she practices medicine, pediatrics in Texas. You might have seen this black woman, Dr. Stella Immanuel, making the rounds. She has become a meme. She has become a GIF. She has become a caricature, right? She has become the face of bullshit when it comes to the coronavirus. So I'm going to tell you first, I was within the last 15 minutes or so, I've become apprehensive about having this conversation about this black woman. 30 minutes ago, I was all in. I was ready. I was ready to clown her. I was ready to ridicule her. And then I had to take a step back. And matter of fact, let me play the video for y'all. For those of you who didn't get a chance to see this black woman doctor, Dr. Stella Immanuel, on this Breitbart produced, and again I say Breitbart produced because we know they manufacture and produce content that's divisive in nature, and it contradicts a lot of what our trusted science folk are saying. And so this consortium of doctors met yesterday, and this was Dr. Stella Immanuel.
Knowing that this is a death sentence and they can't breathe. And I hug them and I tell them it's going to be okay, you're going to live. And we treat them and they live. None has died. So if some fake science, some person sponsored by all these fake pharma companies comes out and say, oh, we've done studies and they found out that it doesn't work, I can tell you categorically it's fake science. I want to know who is sponsoring that study. I want to know who is behind it. Because there is no way I can treat 350 patients and counting and nobody is dead and they all did better. And then you're going to tell me that you treated 20 people, 40 people and it didn't work. I'm a true testimony. So I came here to Washington, D.C. to tell America, nobody needs to get sick. This virus has a cure. It is called hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and Zithromax. I know people want to talk about mask. Hello? You don't need mask. There is a cure. I know they don't want to open schools. No, you don't need people to be locked down. There is prevention and there is a cure. And let me tell you something.
So again, that was Dr. Stella Immanuel. She is Cameroonian born, Nigerian educated, and US based pediatrician, speaking at a Breitbart produced meeting, gathering with various doctors to speak out against this information that we have and that we consider to be truth, in fact, with regards to coronavirus. And so you see in the video that she's talking about that it's fake news, pretty much, us wearing masks. She says that she's treated over 350 patients with the hydrochloroquine medication that Trump touted, but has no scientific backing from that community. She says that nobody has died. We can get to those points, but again, I want to say, 30 minutes ago, I wanted to come on here and castigate her and speak negatively about her. And I still will do that partially because I don't believe in her belief system. But then 15 minutes ago, I took a step back and I recognized that white folk brought out this black woman. She's the only person from this gathering that has been trending. Donald Trump Jr. has had his Twitter account suspended. Her posts have been taken down. This video has been taken down on various outlets. And now here we have this black woman, this black medical professional who is now the face of bullshit when it comes to COVID-19. And that doesn't sit well with me. That doesn't sit well with me because this will further lend a hand into the mistrust that exists for black medical professionals. This will further dissuade black folk from believing in medical professionals because they see somebody that looks like them being trotted out. This caricature. right? Because we know white folk love caricatures, especially our black women who are fat, black, and educated. This is their dream scenario, to put them on the forefront. It's the same thing they did with Mammy, right? It's the same thing that they did with Mammy during blackface. Shit, they did it more recently with Monique, with the Parkers, right? We love the loud, animated black woman. And so, yes, part of her animation is related to her being a pastor. But again, these white men will go on. They won't be negatively affected from this. However, this black woman, and it won't necessarily be because of her beliefs, but it's going to be because of her appearance. And we know how America is. And so it's going to negatively affect and impact the community who's already saying, listen, I'm not getting no COVID vaccine. We already don't believe in medical professionals. And so we have somebody that looks like us because they know our trust is big. We know representation matters when it comes to us. And so now here we are. That's literally catching the short end of the stick, because we're going to be impacted because of this. The real Mr. G says, history repeating an agenda to kill off Africans to prevent being minority. I mean, we can look at that both ways, right? People think the vaccine, people think that all of this taking place, just like Dr. Stella Immanuel, is an attempt to kill off black folk. Because we understand the very real history of eugenics when it comes to us. We understand the Tuskegee experiment, which I talked about yesterday. For 50 some odd years, black men being injected with syphilis. So we understand the consequences and the ramifications that will come from this. But now I want to get into the science of this, right? And matter of fact, not even necessarily the science. I want to get into this individual who is Dr. Stella Immanuel, and why we do have to be mindful about who we're getting our information from. Doing more research, not necessarily believing a 1-minute clip from a medical professional, whether black, white, or Asian, or other. My frustration is that she's going to be the face of this. And we know how we get used and we get discarded by white folk and by white media. So Dr. Stella Immanuel, I consider her beliefs that not wearing a face mask isn't problematic, that a cure does exist for COVID. I don't necessarily believe that. I trust the medical professionals, right? I trust the medical professionals that I see on and hear from on a daily basis. Now, Dr. Stella Immanuel, she has some other interesting beliefs. She's often claimed that gynecological problems like cysts and endometriosis are in fact caused by people having sex in their dreams with demons and witches. She alleges alien DNA is currently used in medical treatments and that scientists are cooking up a vaccine to prevent people from being religious. And despite appearing in Washington, D.C. to lobby Congress yesterday, she said that the government is run in part not by humans, but by reptilians and other aliens. Right? Think about this. Think about this information. Think about the people who we're getting our information from. She's saying demon sex is the reason why women experience infertility. Women and men experience infertility. And I saw this corroborated by folk on Facebook because I was curious, right? Because she considers herself a devout Christian. She considers herself a devout Christian. And we'll get into her homophobia and hatred that she spews in a second, which also stems from her religion and possibly from her African culture, right? Because we make no bones about it. We recognize that in some areas of Africa, homophobia is frowned upon. We recognize that there is a belief in demons and witches in certain areas, amongst certain tribes, amongst certain groups. And so I saw somebody post this and they said, hallelujah, she's speaking the truth. And so I posted on their post, I said, well, because I wasn't sure if they were just doing this because she was a Christian. We know how Christian folks stay together. As long as you put a Jesus, you're going to get a hallelujah, amen on your post, no matter what it says. And so with that being said, I said, listen, are you familiar with some of her other beliefs where she says demon sex in dreams causes infertility? And the person said, and the person I've known for some years said, oh, listen, I agree. And she started naming the demons. And I said, gotcha. I said, gotcha. Listen, that might be above my pay grade. Who am I to tell you what to believe in? Right? Who am I to tell you what to believe in? We all have our own belief systems, right? I choose to believe in science. See, somebody on IG says it's our diet that's causing disease. Okay, right? That might be along the Dr. Sebi's train of thought, right? But it's ironic. It's ironic that we have folk who believe in this woman and the demon sex, but who don't believe in Dr. Sebi and feel like he's the devil. It's such irony in this entire thing. And I'm not saying you, the person who spoke about that. Right. But I do believe an unhealthy diet can make you more susceptible to diseases. That's just fact. Right. Goes on to say that Dr. Immanuel, has used her pulpit to preach hatred of LGBT people. Right. So before the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage, she warned her flock that gay marriage meant that very soon people are going to be seeking to marry children. That doesn't seem to be a 1 + 1 = 2. She accused gay Americans of practicing homosexual terrorism. In the same sermon, she praised the father's decision to not love his transgender son after a gender transition. Again, this seems contradictory to me. Because if Jesus is about love and is about acceptance, then where does this hate come from? Where does this hate come from? Right? That's not it. Because she's a writer as well. She's a writer as well. In one of her books, and I'm not going to say the name of the book, she says, we are now teaching tolerance to something as vile as homosexuality, even to our grade school children. This demon has been released to infect our generation. I think it's important. And again, I go back, it's important to understand who we're getting our information from. Right? Because yes, you can have science and yes, you can have God. They're not mutually exclusive. Not at all. But it is eye-opening. It is concerning if you're someone who thinks critically. Right? You start to think about what percentage of your religious belief systems starts to find their way into your profession, into your medical profession, right? Where you take a Hippocratic oath. Where you take an Hippocratic oath that speaks to things about, to speak to your ethics, which speaks to treatment. I think if you believe in sin and not necessarily sin, but this level of sin and egregious behavior, right? I think that possibly might be influencing how you're seeing this COVID virus. It might be God's will, right? It might be God's will. And so for me, again, I don't want to castigate this woman much. I'd rather do it on the basis of her science as opposed to what it's going to be as this continues to circulate, where this mammy-ish figure will negatively impact black folk seeking out health services. Maybe she doesn't recognize the power that she has. Or maybe she does, right? Because we know who funds Breitbart. We know where their money comes from. We know where it comes from. And so if she's taking a couple of dollars to spew this, then we see exactly what her intentions are. Just Marla says, this is why we must research and vet mindsets that oppress any of us, oppress all of us. My faith says love God, love people, serve God, serve people. This is dangerous, problematic rhetoric. I completely agree. This is one of the reasons why, and I don't speak much on religion, right? Because as I always say, if Allah can make Sharif a better man, I'm all for it. Whatever makes you a better you, I'm all for it. But not if it comes at the expense of others, right? Because you can be a Christian and not spew this type of hateful rhetoric. Praising a father for not loving his transgender son. If that's what your God is, then I'm cool on your God. You can keep your God. You could keep your Jesus, you could keep your Allah, you could keep your Buddha, but that's why I'm a firm believer that there's how many people in the world? Billions? That there are billions of religions that exist, because everybody has their own interpretation of what the quote unquote word is and what it looks like. And so this important, what she brought up, this idea of vetting medical professionals, that's uber important. That's why we have databases. I know for therapists, we have Psychology Today. There are other websites where there are rankings for psychiatrists, psychologists, mental health professionals. It's just like a Yelp review. We need to do Yelp reviews on these professionals. We need to ask questions. So for the 350 people that she's claiming to come, that went to see her and she's treated with the hydrochloroquine, I wonder how many of them just blindly trusted the medical professionals. And see, with black folk, unfortunately, we're either told completely to distrust healthcare professionals or put our blind faith in the professionals. Like there's never an in-between. Think about it. Think about it when you've been in spaces with professionals, how many times you've spoke up on your behalf. I think if we're honest and if we're self-reflective, we'll recognize that there have been times where we've let things be done to us. Whether it's in school, right? As children, interacting with our teachers, we're taught to trust the teacher, to trust the professional. What they say is word. We're not taught to push back. We're not taught to ask questions when we get into the doctor's office. You're not taught to ask what the stethoscope does. You'll see what it does once it's up against your chest. You're not asked to understand what's going to take place when I say ah. You'll see when they put the stick in your mouth. We're not taught to ask questions, especially in the black community. And as Julius Dean, I haven't read his full comment, but this does come from white supremacy. You don't question master or massa. And going forward, we know who had these roles within our communities. Again, we have to think about how we've been conditioned. Think about it. We see the loud, outspoken person, right? Similar to Dr. Immanuel. Very outspoken out in the streets when they're interacting with their friends. But they get in the parent-teacher meeting and they're quiet as a church mouse because you're taught not to question the professional. And so here we are. Here we are. Thinking that pushback is a bad thing. Right? So we're going to chastise our children. Or we're gonna chastise ourselves. Think about ourselves in a lowly fashion, right? Because we pushed back against somebody. Again, it's unhealthy to have things done to us, and we have to unlearn it. We have to unlearn it. Julius Dean says white supremacy comes in many forms, and this physician being touted as an expert on COVID is one of many examples. I mean, again, here we go with this blind trust, right? That I just got finished talking about. I'm taught to trust Dr. Fauci. I put my faith in Dr. Fauci. But I'm no expert, right? Do I have a reason to believe Dr. Fauci over Dr. Immanuel? Like, if we really pull back the layers, am I that well versed? Am I not only reading, because what happened is I'm reading from CNN, I'm reading from Philly.com. But am I reading the research from the trials that's taking place with this vaccine? Am I reading the scientific studies on COVID that are coming from places like Harvard, that are coming from places like the National Institute of Infectious Diseases? Not necessarily. Not necessarily, right? Because again, we're taught to trust the physician. And yes, we see these numbers rising. We see the numbers rising, and we think that, you know what, it's a result of not wearing masks, and it could very well be. But how many of us know that? It just depends where you want to put your trust. And I make this akin to religion, right? One of the reasons why I won't go full atheist, first is because I acknowledge that I have no idea about what happens in the afterlife, right? I have no idea why things happen the way that they do, and I'm okay with that. But part of the reason is, and this was brought up in my philosophy class at community college here in Philadelphia, one of the best classes I've ever had out of my 20 some odd years of education. Is it better to believe and be wrong than not believe and be wrong? Right? Again, I ask, is it better to believe and be wrong or not believe and be wrong? And so the same thing goes with this mask, right? Is it better believe in the mask and that it works and then be wrong? Yeah, because you're like, all right, you know what? At least I'm trying to protect myself. We can rationalize it this way. as opposed to not believe in wearing masks and being wrong and catching COVID like we've seen with so many people. But again, I think black folk inherently, we will always have a lack of trust in medical professionals. Because that's just where we are. The real Maya G says religion is man-made, spirituality is godly. That's what, listen, whatever makes you a better you, Maya G. I feel like that name is very familiar. I feel like that's a name from an adult acrobatic entertainer where Lou Williams went, but I might be wrong. I might be wrong. So, I mean, that's all I got on her, right? I wish her the best. I'll hope that she stops spewing this hate towards various communities. And that's really all I got. What y'all got going on? I'm here to answer y'all questions. I had somebody call in on Skype, but I don't even have it set up, the screen set up to have you, you know what I mean, have you on, but I appreciate the attempt. We could do that tomorrow. What else y'all talking about? Because I have nothing. We see that I was right. What's going on with Major League Baseball? More players of the Miami Marlins tested positive. They will not be playing a game for the remainder of the week. Players in the NFL are beginning to opt out. 21 players have tested positive since Thursday. Again, it shows you how much we care about money and how much of a capitalistic society we are living in. They say money is the root of all evil. No, I don't believe that. And I'm not going to necessarily say white folk are the root of all evil. Certain white folk are the root of all evil. Their ancestors, white folk ancestors, are the root of all evil. But listen, I ain't got much. You know what I mean? I'm starting to sweat a little bit more, forehead percolating a little bit. So what else y'all talking about out here? I saw Meg Thee Stallion made some videos talking about what happened to her getting shot in both feet. Wait, both feet? Is that right? Both feet. Or both foot. Getting shot in her feet. Right? And she came out with this video. And listen, our thoughts are with her as she tries to navigate those times. We see it's a petition for Tory Lane to go back to Canada to get him deported. Almost 15,000 signatures. I've reserved comment on speaking about any type of situation related to domestic violence. I'm not thirsty enough to jump to conclusions. I'm not thirsty enough for content to jump to any conclusions with regards to any type of domestically violent situation. She can speak her piece. He can speak their piece, and it's still not even room for me to truly judge. I'd rather abstain from passing any type of judgment. What I will say is that I don't even want to say that because I don't want it to appear nasty. I don't want it to appear nasty at all. You shouldn't be shooting people in their feet. You shouldn't be punching on people. Right? Those are the rules, unless you're in danger in some sort of way. That is the only way that those things in my eyes are acceptable in any capacity. Now we know the continuum of abuse. When we start to put objects, right, just like child abuse. When I used to investigate cases of abuse and neglect, I would always tell them, listen, it's not illegal to spank your children. But when you start using high-risk implements like belts, like cords, like hangers, you're increasing the risk of being considered a child abuser. by inflicting severe pain or impairment upon your child, even though that wasn't your intent. And so I'll say the same thing. And listen, we know the same thing with fists as well. Mike Tyson's fists are registered deadly weapons. And when you start bringing out guns, you're increasing the risk of something tragic happening. You know, when I talk about when I talk about people who, people who buy guns, right? Listen, you do what you want. But it's important to know the statistics when it comes to gun ownership. People who buy guns are more likely to be victims of their own gun. That's number one. Number two, the intended purpose for the reasons why people buy guns aren't necessarily the reason that they use it. Case in point, domestically violent situations where they buy the gun for protection, but in a high stress situation, you see them shooting their partner, maiming, killing their partner. And so that's a decision that's up to you. That's a decision up to you. Marla says the school district of Philadelphia came and announced that school will be held 100% virtually. Power to the people. Salute to those that came out in the streets on the behalf of our children and staff at all levels. And that's shout out to those people who have been protesting. But that's also unfortunate, right? That's unfortunate that people had to go out into the streets to protest for the school district of Philadelphia or any school district within this country to say, listen, you know what, we're going to be 100% online. Because that means that they can't read the tea leaves. What that means is they haven't looked at the science. They haven't looked at the trends. And it required the people, right? It shows their ineptness. It highlights their ineptness when it comes to large-scale events that can impact the masses. But again, we're talking about a school district that still has asbestos. They still haven't responded to whether it's asbestos in the buildings or not here in Philadelphia. But again, we continue to trust what? We continue to trust the professionals. And so we need to, instead of talking about, in conjunction with defunding the police, we need to be abolishing these school districts. I put my name in to be on the school board. I wasn't selected. A good brother I know was. I wish him well. I hope he has the people at mind, in the forefront, like he always has. But we never know how people show up in these places, these spots of positions, these powerful positions. I see a lot of young folk on Philly City Council. I see y'all. Hope y'all can keep that same energy going forward, right? State Rep Joanna McClinton doing great things. I told her if I voted, I would vote for her. I hope she keeps that same energy and she doesn't become corrupted by the complacency. She doesn't become dejected by the racism, but stays around because we know that check is good, especially the higher up you go, right? We know once you start getting into these spaces, House of Rep, the senators, we know you getting paid for life. They cashing you out for life, whether you're serving or not. And so again, are you going to become fat and appetized? That's the question, right? 740. What else we talk about? I could have talked about Barr have no desire to talk about Barr. He went up on the Hill and he talked about the same thing we knew he was going to talk about. He was going to deny that systemic racism against black folk perpetrated by the police exists. We know he's going to talk about how rioters are the worst things since pants with pockets. Well, no, I guess pants with pockets aren't the worst thing, but you saw where I was going with that. He's going to justify why federal agents have been sent to Portland and are being sent to Chicago and various other cities, but why the protesters in Michigan talking about lynching the governor, there wasn't a peep. He said that wasn't on that wasn't up to him, right? He only responds to the White House, despite being the Attorney General. So again, we know how this dog and pony show go. We know how this dog and pony show go. Hopefully tomorrow is some more interesting things taking place, man. But I'm about to go get my green leaf on. But I'm going to leave y'all with some more words from the good brother, Dr. Umar. Hashtag Quantify LLC. Donations and gift babies. Donations and gifts.
Donations. 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 Gifts. 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 More gifts. More gifts.
Peace.